The Dark Paranormal is supported by BetterHelp. Now, you'll have heard me talk about BetterHelp for a long time, but I don't know that we've ever actually talked about how much people love this service when they use it. But you can check it all out yourself at betterhelp.com/reviews and see those amazing customer reviews in real time. The reviews are updated every day with hundreds of people saying how much they love BetterHelp and how helpful it's been to them. Please visit betterhelp.com/reviews to see for yourself. BetterHelp has an average live therapy session rating of 4.9 out of 5 based on over 1.7 million client session reviews. The feedback from people who've actually used this service speaks for itself. And as more than 6 million people have used BetterHelp globally, it's easy to see why. This consistent feedback from real users make it easy to see why so many people continue to choose BetterHelp. BetterHelp therapists have at least 3 years and 1,000 hours of hands-on experience. They also hold all required education, training, and certifications across a range of mental health specialities. And BetterHelp makes it easy to get started. Answer a few questions, get matched with a therapist based on your needs, and switch therapists at any time if it's not the right fit. See the reviews, see what stands out, and see if BetterHelp is right for you. Visit betterhelp.com, that's betterhelp.com. On today's show, we look at what can happen when something enters your life so quietly, by the time you realize it's there, you can no longer say with any certainty when it all began, or whether you were even meant to notice it at all. We like to think that when we hear stories like this, that we would react differently, that we'd recognize the warning signs, we would trust our instincts. We confront whatever was happening head on. But it's easy to look and think I would do something different. But close your eyes and imagine something far less obvious. That feeling that something is wrong only when you're distracted. Maybe when you're answering the door, you're making dinner, you're carrying the shopping in from the car, you're talking to a loved one. All of those ordinary moments when half of your attention is somewhere else. Now, imagine slowly becoming aware that something seems to understand those moments too. And it's not because it wants your attention, but because it appears to know precisely when you aren't giving it any. As always, on today's episode, we don't promise to give you any answers, but we do promise to give you all the information that we can so you can make up your own mind. On today's episode of The Dark Paranormal. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Dark Paranormal, Season 25, Episode 8, which, yes, means next week is our penultimate episode. It's also the end of our 3, 6, 9 trilogy. Because, of course, this season, for episodes 3, 6, and 9, we take a look at an experience which is well known, but, in my opinion, not well known enough. We began with looking at the Gottlieben story in episode 3, then we took a look at the Watsika Wonder in episode 6, and episode 9 will be our final one, and our most intriguing one yet. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe so that you don't miss when that show drops. And then of course, following that episode, the following week will be our season finale already. Now, we have already set out our plan for season 26, we have the episodes in place for that season, all 10. However, as I always say, this show evolves and is fluid. So if you have your own paranormal experience, you can submit your experience by going to thedarkparanormal.com and clicking Submit My Experience. We always say the right experience will find the right home at the right time. So your experience could still feature in season 26. but regardless, we will guarantee to find it an audience. Be that on the main show or one of our minisodes or even Dark Bites, which goes out to our Patreons. And speaking of which, if you want to support the show, you can join our Patreon by going to patreon.com/The Dark Paranormal or clicking in the links below. And when you go there, you will see you can get access to ad-free, early access content and also additional content, because at our gold tier, you actually get 2 additional episodes as a Patreon each and every week of the year. Irrelevant if it's a downtime between seasons, our Patreons will still get an episode of both Dark Bites, where we take a look at the shorter experiences that we receive, and also a new show that we do, After Dark, which is a video show where I basically talk uninterrupted, unedited for 30 minutes about either a paranormal topic or one of our shows. And the idea behind that is so that you guys can see in real time how I come up with the theories that I do come up with eventually when we do a show like today's. And it's been really insightful for me to do those shows because I can sort of take a step back and see my own thought processes as these theories are weaved out. So if you do wish to support the show via Patreon, click the link in the show notes. We're giving a free week trial away to everyone at the highest tier. And obviously, if you can't do Patreon at the moment, you can subscribe, you can share the show, you can give us a nice review. All these things help us with algorithms and things like that. However, let's move on to the reason why we're all here, which is, of course, episode 8 of season 25. And so, please, lower the lights, make yourself comfortable, and, of course, leave your disbelief at the door, as we hear about when evil fills the gap. Hi, Kev. I work as an inventory clerk. If you don't know what that is, basically, before anyone moves out of a rented house or into a rented house, someone like me will go round with a clipboard and a camera, and they will take photographs to make sure that when people move in, they're moving into a nice place, a clean place, and that when they move out, they haven't left it a mess. Every wall, every carpet stain, every scratch on a skirting board, every mark on a windowsill. You'd be amazed of how much detail goes into my job. A 3-bedroom semi can take me the best part of 2 hours if I'm doing it properly. Because you're not just stood there taking photos of a room, you're looking at the ceiling, the corners, the light fittings, the door frames, inside the cupboards, under the sink, how the carpet is, the corners of the carpet. I know this sounds boring, because believe me, most days it indeed is. But it means I've got a genuine reason to notice when something isn't right. And it also means I've usually got a timestamp on my phone to prove when I noticed it, because every photograph that I take gets logged automatically with the date and the time. Now, I'm not someone who goes looking for this stuff. I don't watch ghost programs or Most Haunted or anything like that. I've just never been the type. I photograph empty houses for a living. That's it. The whole job. I'd been doing this job about 6 years when I got sent to a house on the Bardsley estate, just outside of town. My manager at the time, Craig, mentioned it to me the day before, almost as an afterthought. It was whilst he was handing me the folder. He just said, "Oh, just so you know, that one on Marner Close, there was an incident there a few months back." Well, obviously, I asked, what kind of incident? He sort of shrugged and said that, a lad was killed there. Not in a burglary gone wrong or anything domestic, which I was relieved to hear, but also someone had been killed there still hung over the conversation. Eventually, Craig said it was gang-related. He'd been targeted, and it happened inside the house. Now, Craig didn't know all the details, and to be honest, I kind of didn't want to know them. I didn't push for them, and I certainly didn't want them in my head. Of course, the property company I work for had already been in and professionally cleaned the whole place, obviously, and it had been redecorated and refurnished because the landlord wanted to relist it fast. New tenants were lined up to move in the very next week. My job, as usual, was to go in and do the check-in inventory. So, like I said, I'd go in and I would photograph everything as it currently stood, which was empty but ready. before anyone crossed the threshold and it stopped being before and became lived in. I remember being a bit uneasy about it in the night before, if I'm being honest. Not in a ghost sense, just in a very normal human sense, knowing someone has actually died there. I even mentioned it to my wife, Denise, over dinner. She asked what happened there, and I told her what little Craig had told me, that it was gang-related, the lad was young, and that I didn't know much more, other than I didn't want to know much more. She was sympathetic, but very practical about it, the way she usually is. I think she said something along the lines of, "You're not doing anything wrong here. You're going in, taking photos, and you'll be out. You won't even be thinking about it come lunchtime." She wasn't being dismissive, she just didn't see it as a big deal. And in all honesty, neither did I at the time, not really. I remember laying in bed that night and going over it slightly more than I probably should, thinking about someone that I've never met before and their last few minutes alive in a room I'd be stood in the next morning with a camera, which in hindsight was probably just human squeamishness than any paranormal sense. But there was a kind of anxiety that I had in my chest. But whatever anxiety I had, I genuinely think it was just about the facts. There was nothing supernatural about it. I didn't even believe in any of that at the time. When the day came, it was a warm day, properly sunny. One of those days in early September where it still feels like summer's trying to hang on. Marna Close was one of those little cul-de-sacs. Maybe 8 houses, pebble-dashed. The kind of estate that was probably built in the 80s. Nothing remarkable about it from the outside at all. And of course the house itself was empty apart from the brand new flat-pack furniture that the landlord had bought. That match-everything look that landlords tend to go for, so the photographs will look good on the listing. A new grey sofa still with the plastic on. A coffee table that still smelled of the box. The place itself did actually smell rather sterile, so I opened a few windows in the living room because it does get stuffy in those places anyway, when they've been shut up for a few weeks. But given all of the painting, the new furniture, etc., there was a very clinical smell that needed to go. I opened the kitchen door and the windows in the kitchen to allow a breeze to go right through. I remember all of that quite specifically, because of what happened next. And because I've gone over this moment in my head so many times, it's basically burned into my brain. I was in the living room, crouched down, photographing skirting boards near the fireplace, taking the last few shots of my list before I moved to the kitchen. And then I got this sensation, one I could only describe as being hit in the head, but from inside. It wasn't dizziness exactly, and it wasn't really pain. It was like someone had turned the volume down on the whole world at once, whilst identically turning the pressure up inside my head. Both together, like my ears had been stuffed with cotton wool and my skull had been clamped in a vice in the very same second. My first thought, genuinely, was that I was having some kind of medical episode, a stroke, or even a funny turn, because it felt exactly like what I imagined being concussed feels like. Even though I've never been concussed and nothing had hit me, I hadn't even stood up too fast or done anything that could explain this strange feeling. So I stood there, keeping my bearings just about. I walked over slowly to the fireplace and put my hand on the wall, just to make sure I didn't fall. I thought I should try and get to that couch. I'll try and call Denise. Or maybe I should just call directly for an ambulance. In that second, as I stood there trying to compose myself, the hall door, the kitchen door, and all of the windows slammed at the same time. Not one after another, not like a draft had caught one, then the other. All together, the very same instant. It was like something had grabbed the entire house and closed it. About a millisecond later, I felt the air get pulled out of the room. That's the only way I could describe it. It felt as if there was a giant hole in the floor that I couldn't see, and everything, the air, the pressure, whatever had been making me feel concussed, went down it like it was a plug hole. And once it all disappeared, it was back to an ordinary living room again. Windows shut, doors shut, the sun still coming through the glass. I stood there for a good minute, staring around the room, feeling like myself again, and like a bit of an idiot. I checked the windows for some sort of mechanism. I thought maybe they were on some kind of automatic closer, but they weren't. They were just made of normal UPVC, with a handle. I checked if there was a draft that could have done the doors, but there wasn't. It was a sunny day. There was hardly a breeze. Still, I finished the job. I'm not proud of that looking back. Some part of me thinks I should have definitely just left, but at the time, I convinced myself I had just had a dizzy spell and I needed to just get on with it, get paid and get home. I didn't tell Craig what had happened. I definitely didn't put in the inventory report what happened. I photographed the rest of the house, I locked up, and I drove home telling myself I was fine. I want to say for anyone listening who knows more about this stuff than I do, that I have looked into this and I've since found out that what I'm about to describe is something known as the hitchhiker effect. It's an idea that something can attach itself to a person rather than staying tied to a place. I, of course, didn't know that phrase back then. I just knew that from that day, our house just wasn't right. The very first thing happened maybe 4 days later. I was in the kitchen, filling the kettle, and I hear Denise's voice from the hallway, clear as anything, say, "Did you remember to put the bins out?" It's a totally normal thing for her or most people to hear from their partner any day of the week. And we have a bin day argument most weeks, like any couple. It's not even really an argument, it's one of those little domestic routines that everyone has. I called back, "Yeah, I did it this morning." And I carried on filling the kettle. I didn't think anything of it at all in the moment. It was only a minute or two later, when I walked through to the hall to ask her something else, something about what we were having for tea or along those lines, that I realized she wasn't there. She wasn't in the house at all. She was still at work. She wasn't due back for another 45 minutes. I pulled out my phone and I checked her Find My Phone location without really thinking about why I was doing it. It was just instinct. Probably more out of confusion than suspicion. And yes, she was still in the car park at her office. The little dot sat on the map where I thought it would be. I think, as strange as this sounds, that's the part that unsettled me more than anything dramatic would have. It would almost have been easier if I'd heard something scream or maybe a cup go flying past my head. But it wasn't. It was a voice that was my wife's, saying something completely mundane about bin day. Her actual voice. Her actual cadence. The exact way she says, "Did you remember?" when she was actually 4 miles away and hadn't said it at all. I didn't tell her that night. I told myself I must have misheard the radio or something from next door, even though I didn't hear any radio from the neighbours and they're also not the shouting type. And if they do shout, it's generally heard when we're in the back garden. The house itself is quite soundproof. But I also didn't know how to bring it up without sounding like I needed help. After that, it became a pattern. And the pattern was always the same shape. We never heard the cause, just the effect, if that makes any sense. For example, if you've been sitting on a business idea, Shopify makes it easy to make it happen. Everything you need to start selling is included and ready from day one. With Shopify, from the moment your first customer is ready to pay, Shopify Checkout helps all of them finish their purchases. And when they come back, their details are already saved. One tap and they're done. And because Shopify have built that structure to handle the setup, the checkout, etc., that means you have more time to grow your passions, to grow your business, and it gives you the tools to do it. And don't think Shopify is for people starting out. Shopify powers millions of known businesses worldwide, like Mattel and Gymshark, to small businesses like the one you're going to start. With Shopify, nothing stands between you, your idea, and a real business. So go make it one. Start your free trial at shopify.com/darkparanormal. Start your free trial at shopify.com/darkparanormal. There's not much you can do about the money you have now. But if you want to do something about the money you could have tomorrow, Acorns wants to help. And with the Acorns potential screen, you can find out what your money is capable of. Acorns is a smart way to give your money a chance to grow. It's easy. You can sign up in minutes and start automatically investing your spare money, even if all you have is spare change. Because Acorns grows with you. Whether you're just starting out or thinking about settling down, Acorns supports your big and small goals across every life stage. And the Acorns potential screen shows you the power of compounding and how your money can grow over time. Plus, you can quickly adjust how much you're investing every day, every week, or month to make sure you're building toward your goals. Acorns is an all-in-one. No more finance apps cluttering up your phone. With Acorns, you can invest, save, and give your money a chance to grow in one trusted place. I've had and used many financial applications, but the specific thing about the Acorns app I love is the potential screen. Of all the apps I've used, it gives me such a clear picture of the opportunities for my cash to grow. So sign up now and Acorns will boost your new account with a $5 bonus investment. Join the over 14 million all-time customers who've already saved and invested over $22 billion with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/darkparanormal or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid non-client endorsements. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. T2 compensation provided. Potential subject to various factors such as customers' accounts, age, and investment settings. Does not include Acorns fees. Results do not predict or represent the performance of any Acorns portfolio. Investment results will vary. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/darkparanormal. I'll be the first to admit I am not the most organised man in the world, especially when it comes to organising a dinner party. There's usually always a missing ingredient, and normally it's the main ingredient, which then leads to a rushed supermarket trip to pick the best of the worst that's been left out. A problem that would simply not exist if I was stateside and able to use Omaha steaks. With the ability to get fresh Omaha steaks and keep them frozen in my freezer, I would never have this danger again. With things like their legendary steaks, their flavour-filled burgers, and seafood and chicken, it's like having your own trusted butcher and gourmet food shop right at home. And you may think, can frozen delivery be this good? Well, yes. Omaha steaks are known for their meticulous aging process and vacuum-sealed individual packaging. And if you've never tried them before, start perfectly with the Burger Perfection Flight. The Burger Perfection Flight includes 4 pure ground versions of the following meats: filet mignon burgers, New York strip burgers, ribeye burgers, brisket burgers, and sirloin burgers. Try the Burger Perfection Flight at omahasteaks.com today. That's 20 premium steak burgers for just $79.99. And get $35 off with the promo code BEEF. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code BEEF for $35 off at checkout. Terms apply, see the site for details. We've got a spare room upstairs with an old bed frame in it. No one sleeps in there. But every so often, usually in the evening when the house is quiet, we would hear the springs compress. That specific noise a mattress makes when somebody puts weight on it. Like someone had just sat down or lay down on the mattress. But we would never hear the footsteps going into the room or up the stairs. No creak on the landing, no door. Just the bed, mid-action, as if the first part had been skipped entirely and we'd only been given the result. Then we had the kitchen cupboard where we keep the glasses. We'd be sitting in the living room and we would hear the glasses knock together gently. That little clink-clink that glasses make when something's disturbed them. But the doors were never open. No noise of a hinge, no click of a latch, just the clink of the glasses settling. Like a hand had already been in there and already left by the time the sound reached us. Again, the after effect, not the build-up. And then there's the bathroom extractor fan. which started coming on by itself. Ours is one of those fans that's wired to the light switch, so it should only come on when someone flicks the light on. It's not on a timer, nor a humidity sensor or anything like that. But it would click on. That little electrical hum. Exactly like someone had walked in, shut the door behind them out of habit, and flipped the switch. But no one had gone in. No footsteps on the landing. No door opening. No click of the light switch itself. Just the fan. Already running, as if we'd been dropped into the middle of something that had already started without us hearing the beginning. I began keeping a note of these on my phone, dates and times, partly because of my job I do that sometimes if I don't have a pad or my pen runs out, etc. I suppose if you spend your working life documenting things down to the minute, you don't really switch that habit off, even at home. Denise and I have a very honest relationship, and we're often in each other's phones to find something, either on her email address or mine. There is no secrecy. And Denise found the notes in my phone one evening, scrolling through my phone to find a photo of her mum's birthday. I should say, yes, it's a little bit anal, but I also do sometimes keep photos in the notes section so it can add a note of when that photo was taken, etc. But when she found that list of things that had been going on, it was a very difficult conversation. She didn't shout or anything like that. She's just not like that. But I could see her doing that thing where she's being careful with you because she's worried about you, not because she believes you. Choosing her words slowly, watching your face while you answer. And she asked if I'd been sleeping properly. She asked gently if work had been more stressful. Whether going into that house on Marner Close had really upset me more than I'd let on. I understood why she was asking, and looking back, I probably would have asked the very same thing if I was in her position. But it still stung, because from my side at least, I hadn't imagined any of this. And right now, I had a wife who I loved dearly, looking at me like I may be cracking up. And I didn't have one single thing I could show her as any evidence that would prove otherwise. For a while, that was almost worse than the phenomena itself. I felt like I was on my own. She wasn't unkind. I want to be fair to her, she just genuinely hadn't experienced anything herself, as far as either of us knew. So from where she was standing, she had her husband hearing voices and creaking beds and getting worked up about an extractor fan and nothing to back it up, other than his words and some notes in a phone. However, things would change because of something completely unrelated to any of this. Denise got offered a big promotion at work, a real step up. And when I say a real step up, it was several steps up. Much more money, a company car, relocation to head office about 90 minutes away. Now, she wanted to stay where we were, but not necessarily in that house. She loved the area, but she always didn't like the house, not for any paranormal reasons, all for very practical ones. So this was her perfect opportunity to suggest again that we move. Now, beforehand, there was always something why I didn't want to, a reason, a valid reason. The wrong time for the kids' school, us not wanting to leave family, one thing or another. But this time, it lined up perfectly. She came home buzzing about the new job, waving her offer letter around the kitchen. And honestly, so was I, though for slightly different reasons. I wanted the fresh start for her career, obviously. That part was genuine. But if I'm to be completely honest, some part of me was thinking about the springs in the mattress, the glasses clinking in the cupboard, the fan just going off. And I was just quietly relieved that I'd have a reason to leave that didn't involve explaining all that to anyone. Of course, I never said that out loud at the time, not even to Denise. Over the next fortnight, Denise started thinking about moving and ended up saying she would sooner rent somewhere than buy, whilst we moved out of this house into a bigger house that would accommodate her new car and mine, and we found a lovely and larger place in a better area on the other side of town. We arranged the whole thing pretty quickly, and we'd packed up and were moved in about 8 weeks all told. It was maybe 2 months after we'd settled into the new place, sat having a cup of tea one evening, when Denise herself, out of nowhere, said, "I need to tell you something, and I should have told you ages ago." She said that within a week of moving into the new house, she had started noticing things. She hadn't said anything to me at the time because she didn't want to add fuel to the fire of my mind from the previous house. She didn't want me getting overly anxious about my job, and because, in her words, this thing never happened when she was looking for it. That was the detail that stuck with me most. She said if she ever deliberately paid attention, trying to catch something, sat watching a room or waiting for a noise, nothing would happen. Nothing at all. And she tried, more than once. Sat on the stairs in the evening after I'd gone to bed, just waiting, and every single time, nothing. It would only ever occur in what she referred to as transitional moments. The in-between bits of a day, the times when your attention is naturally split between two things and you can't fully commit to either. She gave me examples, one after another, like she'd been keeping her own list in her head, like I had on my phone. For example, she said she'd be in the hallway, answering the front door, hand on the latch, half turned to whoever was on the step, and out of the corner of her eye, something in the hallway would shift. She'd turn to look, and whatever it was had gone. Nothing there. Or she gave another example of saying she'd be talking to her mother on the phone, and she'd be a bit distracted, saying, "Yep, go on," thinking of something else whilst listening to her mother, and she would catch movement near the bottom of the couch. She said she'd stopped listening to whatever her mother was talking about and glared at this spot. But again, nothing. Or she mentioned a time putting the baby to bed. She was leaning over the cot, the door was to her left, light streaming in from the landing and very dim light within the nursery. And something stood in the doorway blocking the light. In a split second, she said all the hairs on her arm raised, and she spun round to face this apparent intruder, only to find the light streaming back in. She ran to the doorway and there was no one on the landing, there was no one in any of the rooms upstairs, and she would have heard somebody running downstairs. And this is what bothered her. The instant she focused on it properly was the instant it disappeared. Another time she was coming in from the car, shopping bags cutting into her fingers, both hands full, keys still in her mouth, unable to react quickly even if she wanted. And a black shape flew across the wall and out of the room. She dropped the bags and the keys from her mouth in fear and gave what she called that unrepeatable noise when you're genuinely scared. But she also said she'd worked it out. That whatever it was seemed to wait specifically for the moments when her attention was split between two things. It was never a moment when she was fully present in a room. Never a moment when she was just sat there doing nothing. It was like it knew the difference between the two, and it could tell exactly when she'd stopped being fully in the room. And then this thing would see a window to use. She said she'd almost been able to predict it. That if she caught herself doing two things at once, she'd brace. And more often than not, at the exact same time she would brace, she would see something at the edge of her vision. Hearing her describe it that way, using almost the exact same logic that I'd used in the other house, with the bed with no footsteps, the glasses clinking without the cupboards opening, the fan with nobody going into the bathroom. All of it seemed to build around the gap, rather than the thing itself. And it clicked into place for both of us at the same time. Sat there, with our tea going cold. First it was me, then it was her, carrying a version of this same thing without telling the other person, for months. Both of us thinking we were the only one experiencing it, both of us wanting to protect the other from any worry. She asked me why I hadn't told her at the time, about what happened in the house with the windows shutting and me feeling like I was concussed. I said the same thing back. I didn't want to frighten you. Neither of us had a very good answer beyond not wanting to frighten the other than not wanting to sound mad. Interestingly, since we've moved into this house, I have experienced nothing. However, where this ties in is that I've also at the same time been very snowed under at work. For the full 2 months we've lived here, I've been working when I come home till I go to bed. So my attention, if we're looking at what my wife thinks, has been fully focused all the time. My wife, on the other hand, was using up her holidays and also was given garden leave. So her mind was full of this rental, where we would eventually buy, etc. Lots of occasions where she could be in that state, as she put it, a transitional state of not being able to fully commit to one thought at a time. And this is the thing which is now fascinating me, arguably too much. The pattern, not necessarily the fear or what this thing is, but the very fact Denise is right. Nothing's ever happened when either of us was giving something our full attention. It's like it waits. It picks the moments when we're split, distracted, or our hands are full, or our ears are half on someone else, our eyes on a phone call or a set of keys, or a toddler in a cot. And when I really sit with that, it stops feeling like something that was trying to perform for us, or trying to scare us, or even trying to be seen like I'd assumed at the time. With the door slamming, the air going, all of that felt dramatic enough to be solely aimed at me. But everything that came after, in both houses, was the opposite of dramatic. It felt more like something that had learned exactly how to exploit the moments when our attention was somewhere else entirely. Because the terrifying thing is not that this whatever it was wanted to be noticed, but that it very specifically didn't. My wife started a new job last month, and to date, and we're very honest with each other about this now that it's out there, she hasn't experienced anything either. But I will say she's also very actively looking for somewhere to buy. Though each time she does, and she mentions the things in the house as part of the reason, I explain to her I don't believe moving is going to change whatever decided to hitchhike on me from that murder house. Thank you for reading my experience. If you do decide to use it, please keep me anonymous. Well, thank you, Anonymous, so much for that experience. This is one of the best experiences I think we've ever received, and I will tell you why. It's because that idea of attention and where we put it and what it does when we do put it somewhere or we don't put it somewhere is something we have discussed on Dark Bites and on other shows frequently. This idea of giving something attention can either create it, or in this instance, it seems to be, like you say, it's not necessarily where you put your attention, it's how it's split. And I know exactly what you mean. We've all done that, where you're on the phone to someone whilst you're doing something else with your hands. That split in attention, which we're all capable of doing, it's interesting to think that something out there in the paranormal world is an entity that uses that particular gap to make itself known. My only question would be if indeed it was a hitchhiker-type spirit, or if it was something that was dormant around you and your wife. Because, thinking about how you've described your experience, it seems that when you had that dizzy spell, if we just call it that for now, you were in a process of trying to do your job, having this dizzy spell, debating what your next move should be. Your attention was split. And that's when you heard all the doors close, and it felt like, as you say, a plug hole opened and the whole house disappeared into it, leaving you stood in the normal room feeling back to your normal self. So is it a case of it's always been around either you or your wife, and it was triggered by the fact you had a rather large divergence of your attention in that house? Or maybe it was something loitering at that house with intent to hitchhike on a human, and did successfully, but needed that gap to appear. And maybe that was a genuine sugar rush or something internally, medically, that happened to you. And when you stood and caused this huge diversion and distraction of your own attention, it saw a huge window to jump through, and indeed did. All, of course, just theories, and we will only know the answer when we get to go and join them on the other side. But for right now, Anonymous, thank you so much for such a thought-provoking experience. It's one I'm going to be mulling over for a good week. Which works out well, because next week we have our penultimate episode of Season 25, where we finish our 369 trilogy of this season. And of course, I know what that episode's going to be, and I can't wait to share it with you. I think some of you will know it. Arguably, most of you will know it. But hopefully we will do it justice in the dark paranormal way. And so until next week, please all stay safe, take care, and remember, whenever you're discussing the paranormal, always try and leave some of your disbelief at the door. And I'll see you next week right here on the Dark Paranormal.